So we'll be starting shortly, so please be seated. And also, I would like to remind you that this event will be given in English language. So for those people who require the translation, please use the simultaneous headset, which is on the table in front of you. Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for being here. So from now, we would like to start the G20 IEA, the hydrogen report launch event. So first, we'll have the opening remarks from Mr. Hiroshige Seko, Minister of Economy, Trade, and Industry, the government of Japan. So, Mr. Seko, the floor is yours, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Hiroshige Seko, Minister of Economy, Trade, and Industry, Japan. First of all, I would like to congratulate the IEA on the release of the hydrogen report. Congratulations. Among many methods for energy transitions and decarbonization, I strongly believe that hydrogen is the key to opening the future of energy in all sectors, such as transportation, industry, and the electricity sectors. In order to stimulate investment and promote hydrogen energy globally, reliable data regarding hydrogen costs and prospects are needed. The report to be released today is the IEA's first variable hydrogen report, which includes cost comparisons of hydrogen production and transportation and policy recommendations. This report, which provides abundant reliable data, will contribute greatly to the realization of the hydrogen society. This report is promised to draw international attention of industries and governments. I highly expect that distinguished experts from leading global companies in this room today will take actions to make the hydrogen society materialize based on this report. In December 2017, the government of Japan formulated our basic hydrogen strategy. This is the world's first national strategy. Subsequently, the strategic roadmap for hydrogen and fuel cells was released this March. Efforts by the public and the private sectors in Japan are already underway to turn this strategy into reality. Over 3,100 fuel cell vehicles are already on the road. Hydrogen refueling stations are in place in 107 locations, more than anywhere else in the world. In Japan, hydrogen energy is becoming more and more widespread each year, and more than 280,000 residential fuel cells known as NFM have been installed. The biggest challenge to increase use of hydrogen further is cost reduction. Japan aims to reduce hydrogen production costs to the level of fossil fuels by 2050 and expand the hydrogen market globally. To achieve this goal, we are trying to strengthen international cooperation on harmonization of regulations and standards, and promoting research and development. As a first step towards international collaboration, there was first hydrogen energy ministerial meeting with the participation of 21 countries, regions, and organizations was held in Japan last October. I released the Tokyo Statement as a chair summary. Additionally, in Davos in January of this year, I discussed global public-private cooperation with Dr. Fatih Birol and Mr. Benoit Bottier. The G20 Ministerial Meeting, which will be held from tomorrow here in Karizawa, aims to announce the importance of innovation in accelerating energy transitions in the world. I believe everyone in this room are confident that hydrogen will be one of the most important key technologies for the transitions. Japan plans to hold the second Hydrogen Energy Ministerial Meeting on September 25th this year and discuss concrete actions to realize the Tokyo Statement, considering results of G20 meeting and the IEA report. The Hydrogen Society will not be built in a day. Japan commits to tackling the above-mentioned challenges in order to create a global hydrogen market together with the rest of the world. Finally, I would like to thank the Hydrogen Council for their support in holding this launch event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister Seko, for this very clear and robust message supporting the hydrogen. Next, we would like to move on to the presentation of the IEA report. So Dr. Fatih Birol, the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, will present the major findings from the IEA's new report, The Future of Hydrogen. So Dr. Fatih Birol, the floor is yours.
Mr. Minister, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, very good afternoon to all of you. It's a great honor to be here with Minister Seko and with all of you. It's a great honor for the International Energy Agency to release this major study on hydrogen, which we hope will have significant implications for governments, for industry, and for our planet. But before going to the hydrogen, I would like to say a few words, if I may, Mr. Minister, on the attacks in Gulf of Oman recently. It's a major concern. It's a concern for global energy security. It's a concern for global oil security and for the LNG markets. The very Strait of Hormuz is one of the, perhaps the most important choke point of the world when it comes to global energy trade. According to our most recent numbers, about 18 million barrels per day oil flows this choke point. It is about 1/3 of the all global oil trade. It mainly goes to the major economies in Asia, Japan, Korea, China, India, and coming mainly from Saudi Arabia, Emirates, and Kuwait. It also carries about 30% of international LNG trade. And this LNG is predominantly directed to Japan, South Korea, and other parts of Asia. As our core mission, IEA's core mission is energy security, I would like to underline that we are monitoring the events and their possible implications very closely, and International Energy Agency is standing ready to act if and when necessary. From this, I would like to go to the issue of hydrogen. Japanese government is showing a great leadership. entire government, Prime Minister Abe, Minister Seko, took this issue very seriously and pushing it at international fora. I am thankful to Minister Seko for holding the first ever hydrogen ministerial meeting, making a very strong case in Davos in front of the international leaders, and again bringing us here to G20 and again highlighting the issue of hydrogen, its possible contribution to our energy future. Hydrogen's strength is versatility. It is very versatile. First of all, it can be produced from different fuel sources, not only from one, but from different sources, very different, very diverse. And second, it can be used for different purposes, powering the houses, trucks, jets. It can feed the industry, cars, trucks, everything. So it is very versatile, it is very flexible, and it is the reason that the International Energy Agency takes the hydrogen very seriously, as we are an all-energy, all-technologies organization. Now, looking at the hydrogen today, I see that the momentum, current momentum on hydrogen is unprecedented. I have rarely seen an energy topic so unifying among the countries, among the governments around the world, and the companies as well. Energy exporting countries, energy importing countries, renewable energy industry, oil, gas industries, major energy firms, electricity utilities, car makers, they are all pushing the hydrogen agenda strongly. This is, in my humble opinion, this is rather unprecedented. Now, hydrogen can help us in different ways. First of all, we see that the hydrogen can be a very good supporter of the renewables, solar PV and wind, in terms of providing a strong storage options. Not for a few hours, but days, months, and months. And there is a huge room for cost reduction here. Number one, for renewables. Number two, decarbonization of certain sectors which are difficult to decarbonize only with renewables. They need, some of the industrial processes need high temperature for the processes. And you need fossil fuels there. And some of those industry segments are very important. Our numbers show that today, just steel and chemical sectors emissions are as much as all the car emissions around the world. Just two of them, all emissions equal to all the cars around the world, and therefore it is very important to use hydrogen here in order to help to decarbonize the steel, chemicals, trucks, jets, and others. Third, in terms of the energy security, we just talked about enhancing the energy security, providing a lot of options for all the energy sources, because the magical word for energy security is diversification, and it can provide this diversification here, hydrogen. So they are all very important challenges of energy sector, and they are all good. But we have some barriers. What are those barriers? First of all, cost. Minister Seko highlighted Japan's very ambition of bringing the cost down. This is one. Second, building the necessary infrastructure, very important filling stations and others. Third, cleaning the existing hydrogen. I will come to that in a moment. And fourth, for the governments, there are some regulatory barriers. We have to altogether deal with those barriers. Now, hydrogen, some of us may think hydrogen is in the future because there's an industry joke since 30 years. Hydrogen is always the energy of future, every time. But I think IEA is very keen to reverse this motto. Hydrogen is today's contribution to a sustainable energy future. Because, first of all, we already have hydrogen coming from different parts of the industry, especially refineries and chemicals, about 70 million tons. My colleagues look company by company, project and project, it is 70 million tons. This amount of hydrogen is, in theory, enough to fuel the half of the cars in the world, just to put in a context. This is very good. It's already there. The issue is, from this hydrogen, how it is produced, significant amount of CO2 goes to the atmosphere. This is one of the challenges, the current hydrogen production. Another challenge is the cost. When we look at the cost of producing hydrogen from gas, which again has some implications for emissions, if we do it with the, coupled with the carbon capture, it goes up. There are some coal used, mainly in China, but the important, again, is the hydrogen from renewables. Costs are significantly high. And we have to find ways in order to bring this cost down. According to our detailed analysis in our report that Mr. Seko highlighted, we see that about, in terms of renewables, hydrogen from renewables, 60% of the cost is electricity generation-related cost, and 40% in the context of electrolysis. 60% the renewable electricity generation, and 40% from the electrolysis process. So, we all know, I think nobody disagrees here, we are going to see a decline of the solar PV and wind costs. So this will be definitely pushing the cost down, and also the electrolysis costs will hopefully come down as a result of the scaling up of hydrogen, economies of scale, learning by doing. That is one of the main themes of our report. Now, when we look at the production side of hydrogen, we see that the hydrogen production with CO2 capture is coming online already. We see that there are currently operational 7 projects around the world, which are in the Middle East, United States, in Japan, in Hokkaido, and somewhere else, coupled with CCUS. And we also see that there are additional 15 projects which are under construction or planned different parts of the world, in Australia, Europe, and elsewhere, which we hope to see that they will soon be completed. But it shows that many governments around the world taking it seriously, hydrogen, and coupled with CCUS. Scale up, the keyword of our report, is also happening on the renewable hydrogen side. My colleagues here analyze every square of the Earth and optimize the combination of solar and wind that would give the lower costs. The darker the color is, the lower the costs are. And what we see here is that the cost could be as low as $2 per kilogram in some regions of the world. And this $2 is very much compatible with the gas production from gas I showed you just a few minutes ago. So we are seeing a lot of opportunities here, and there are about 200 projects started operation since the year 2000, and they are getting bigger and bigger by the day. As Minister Seko mentioned in Davos, several CEOs, I'm sure the CEO of Air Liquide will agree with me, are looking at the hydrogen projects very closely, and billions of dollars are not only words, but dollars are flowing in this direction. Now, as a result of that, we see that in some parts you see dark colors, in some parts you see light colors. And this would mean that there is an option, possibility of the international trade for hydrogen in the world, which is important to highlight. Now, my last two slides are about the first, these were the supply side with the CCUS and now with renewables on the demand side. We need to create dependable demand for existing and new users of hydrogen. So when we look at the existing ones, we expected with the current policies, even not with the acceleration of the policies from chemicals, refinery, steel, already a growth of demand for hydrogen, just with the existing policies. Leave aside with the hope the IEA has from G20 and other fora gives an additional push to hydrogen with the existing ones. But also, there is a hope, we hope, and we see some indications for that, there are new applications coming in the picture, such as the building sector. We see that the big opportunity here, and in some countries we are in discussion with the ones in Europe especially, the hydrogen can be blended into natural gas and be a part of the solution. And we already have the existing grids for that. The other one is on the vehicle side. Today, there are about 11,200 fuel cell vehicles, and we have the series of major companies here with us. And just looking at the government's, some of the government's plausible objectives, the number can go from 11,000 to 2.5 million by 2030. Another new source of growth of hydrogen demand, in addition to buildings, cars, and trucks. Now, we have in our report made 7 recommendations to our governments around the world, and they are all practical recommendations. I would like to highlight one of them to you and finish my presentation. We have highlighted in our report 4 key near-term opportunities to scale up hydrogen to 2030 in order to bring down the cost. This is our main concern. Scale up, bring down the cost. Some of you may remember when Germany, 20 years ago, put the subsidies for solar energy. It took 25 years. The share of solar energy has a 1% share in the electricity generation, which means there is a need for consistent and persistent government policies here. So, what are our 4 key opportunities we highlight in the near term? The first one is to make the industry ports the nerve centers for scaling up the use of clean hydrogen. So there are coastal industrial zones around the world, such as North Sea in Europe, Gulf Coast in North America, and Southeastern China. And these, in most of them, there are already plans to shift cleaner hydrogen by using carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and this will drive the cost. These larger sources of hydrogen can also help to fuel the ships and trucks serving the ports and the power nearby industry facilities. So the first one is focus on the industrial ports and make them nerve centers to scale up clean hydrogen. There are many examples now around the world, again in Europe, in the United States, in southern China, and elsewhere. Second, gas grids. Second out of 4 option we highlight. The build on the existing millions of kilometers of natural gas grids. Just introducing about 5% of the hydrogen in the gas today and sending like that would give an additional demand, dependable demand for the hydrogen in Europe and elsewhere. So therefore, make use of the existing infrastructure, including the millions of kilometers of existing natural gas grids. Third, expand hydrogen in transportation through fleets, freights, and corridors. The powering high mileage cars, not the short distance, but long distance cars, trucks, and buses. And that would help us carry the goods and passengers along the popular and very much frequented routes, and with the filling stations equipped, this can give another third option to push the hydrogen in transportation through car, truck fleets, as Japan is doing now. And fourth, and the last one, launch the hydrogen trade's first international shipping routes. I gave you the example of solar 20 years ago, but I can give you another example here is the LNG business. And LNG, we can learn, the hydrogen community can learn from the LNG, how it is now becoming one of the most important contributors to global energy markets, and the lessons from there can be leveraged. And there may be, for example, why not to build an international trade route between Japan and Australia, which is very logical. And today, again, I finish by saying 2 things. Cost is the main issue. We have to bring costs down, especially through scale up. And here, just to give you an example, today, our numbers show that the comparison lakhs for lakhs, hydrogen is about only 2.5 times more expensive than the gasoline at pump in different parts of the world. Hydrogen, filling with hydrogen, is 2.5 times more expensive than the gasoline at pump, which giving the just starting the enthusiasm for hydrogen big hopes for the cost reduction. So difference is not so big. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me finish the highlighting our hope that we hope that tomorrow, G20 ministers, under the leadership of Minister Seko, recognize the very potential of hydrogen to help us to address our climate change, air pollution, energy security challenges is a promising technology, and International Energy Agency is ready to support all the countries who wants to take this journey with us together. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Birol. So next, we will have the comments and remarks on this IEA report from the industries. So Mr. Benoit Potier, the CEO of Air Liquide Group and the co-chairman of the Hydrogen Council will give you the remarks. So Mr. Potier, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, dear Minister Seko, dear Executive Director, Dr. Birol, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Today is actually a very special day for the Hydrogen Council members. First of all, because each time we come to Japan, we are reminded that the key of any energy system change is to build and to keep a long-term vision and to plan carefully the actions to be implemented, and Japan is exemplary of both. And thanks to Japan, hydrogen today is seen more and more in many countries as a critical vector for our much-needed energy mix revolution. This cannot happen if both ends of the energy system are not adapted, meaning the users and the producers. Japan roadmap has this specificity that it covers both producers and users. From the development of long-term hydrogen shipping routes to the massive use in industry, power, and transport sectors. The fact that the coming G20 will spend some time on the potential and the need to further develop the hydrogen technology is a strong achievement that we owe to Japan constant and determined action over the past 20 years. This is a special day also for a second reason, because the IEA's report comes at the right moment to help us to move collectively into the next phase of hydrogen technologies deployment. Indeed, as some of you know, we are entering the critical phase of hydrogen deployment, which is in line with the urgent need to find solutions for global warming. And as a matter of fact, Fatih Birol regularly points out that our emissions have grown by 1.5 gigaton since we signed the Paris Agreement. So this is really urgent. And this means for the hydrogen economy, larger and more significant investments for each project, therefore more risks for the early adopters, but also more commitment needed. If it doesn't come with a clear political support associated with regulations and the proper financial mechanisms, the investment at stake cannot be done. IEA has put in perspective the versatility, we heard that earlier, of hydrogen, and insisted on its potential role at the crossroads of cleaner fossil energies and renewable ones. It will be particularly important in the coming decades as we will need both before entering into a full renewable world. And I insist on that. This is a transition, and we need to realize that. IEA is also giving to this technology a sort of energy policy view that complements very interestingly our industry perspective and what we do within the Council. This report provides a very dense, comprehensive, and detailed view of the key economic and technical elements of the hydrogen value chain, as well as potential user markets today and by 2030, which is just 10 years ago, which is nothing for industry. The quality of the analysis and the richness of the supporting documentation are a testimony of the quality of the work done by the authors, but also of the already widely spread knowledge of this industry, which is a sign of maturity. Furthermore, beyond the analytical view, IEA calls for actions, and now. It's not a dream, it's not a fantasy, it is manageable. And the report highlights also some weaknesses that need to be harnessed and fixed. I think the cost side was detailed, and this is very, very important, of course, but also the norms and the regulations and the focus on the key winning markets. We have to start by being focused to reach the scale. The report also suggests strategies and their implementation at scale with a focus on a key few priorities. And if I may, I will repeat because it's important. In terms of regions, is to focus on ports, industrial ports, and we buy that. In terms of topics, it's about regulations and standards. in terms of market segments is transportation and freight corridors. In terms of application, it's shipping routes. And in terms of infrastructure assets, is the use of natural gas pipes. We all agree within the Council that this is the way to go. And last, the report calls for a strong policy action from the key mobilized countries in order to develop concerted plans and harmonized regulation. This is why this G20 meeting is so important, because we can get the cooperation from all the countries during one meeting. We have within the Hydrogen Council built over the past 2.5 years, we are a very young organization, as a matter of fact, a solid coalition of major players. We started with only 13 companies. We are today 60 world companies. We are all determined to invest and to develop the technology, as we believe it is key for the energy transition and good for our societies and companies. We have developed several analyses on the potential of this molecule. Hydrogen is a molecule. We think that 18% of the final energy demand in the whole world can be hydrogen, nearly 20%. The value of this energy represents $2.5 trillion. So it's a huge potential market for this molecule. And it can allow us to avoid emitting 6 gigatons of CO2, which is 20% of the gap that we have to close to reach the 2-degree scenario. So it's a very significant impact if we are successful. We are currently finalizing our cost roadmap. By the end of this year, the Hydrogen Council will have developed this roadmap analysis to better see where the efforts have to be put rapidly to reach scale and competitiveness in time. Now, just one more word. All the technologies are already existing. It's not a matter of inventing new technologies. It's a matter of bringing down costs by scaling up, but also by working more specifically on those who are the most expensive. We are even today initiating the discussion with key financial players, and it's very important, on the best tools to have them help develop the markets. And if the IEA report enables some of the key policymakers to embark with Japan on the hydrogen journey at scale, I can assure you that the industry will follow. So I think that's an important point in the history of energy. With this, I would like to really congratulate IEA for the work done. And I heard that it was a heavy work to actually gather all the documents and also take into account all the comments that were made on the draft versions. And I would like also to thank you again, Minister Seko, on this occasion here at the G20 Energy Ministerial Meeting to spend time on this key enabler of the energy transition in a place here in Kawasawa, which is so dear to the heart of the Japanese for many reasons. And I just heard today that it was also very dear to John Lennon's heart. I didn't know that, but that's a second reason to be here with all of you today. And it reminds us the charm of the country and of this region, and how critical it is now to move and act fast with impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Potier. So we would like to move on to the question and answer session, even though we're a bit behind schedule, but we would like to secure several minutes, a few minutes for the question and answer. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand, and also please state your name and the company before asking the question. Sir.
In NHK の大川と言います。
I'm NHK. I'm from Okawa. My name is Okawa from NHK. We'll be asking my question in Japanese. First to the Minister Seko, how did you receive the hydrogen report of IEA, and how is it going to be connected into the tomorrow's meeting? And to Mr. Birol, Dr. Birol, you said that the Amman attack was a threat to the energy security, and that you would like to be prepared to take any actions. Are there what kind of options would you have if you had to take any actions?
Are there any other questions? Please, Minister Seko, どうぞ。
この政策提言にはですね、
Now, for this policy proposal,
put on your earphones and select channel 2 for English. Okay. この
so for this IEA report, there were the 7 proposals included. There were the 7 propositions, and the perspective of these 7 propositions is very important from Japan as well. This is very important for Japan as well, especially the proposal on the necessity to make a long-term strategy. That has caught my eye. For Japan, we have created this long-term strategy for the Hydrogen 2017, and this year we have created a roadmap for hydrogen society. And also, you've talked about the necessity of relaxing the regulations for the use of hydrogen. For Japan, in the past 1.5 years, there is 19 regulations have already been reviewed in order to relax the regulations for deregulations of hydrogen-related areas. And next year, there's the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Tokyo. So until then, we want to have an unmanned hydrogen station to be able to refuel the FCVs with an unmanned station, and we want to secure the safety for that. And so we would like to be reviewing the regulations to allow that by next year's Olympic Paralympic Games. And for this year budget, for the budget of our ministry, compared with the past year, we have included our budget 1.5 times to do the R&D and experimental trials and projects. And this IEA report is very valuable and very important to us, so we'd like to use this as a key reference as we can make efforts in 100% effort to achieve hydrogen society. And with that, this time, G20, the main countries' leaders are here to attend the meeting for G20, and we would like to talk about and confirm the importance of hydrogen and the hydrogen society. I believe that this is a very important opportunity for us. So in tomorrow's ministerial meeting, we would like to talk about the usage and of hydrogen and the promotion of hydrogen. As a chairperson, I'd like to focus about this topic of hydrogen.
So thank you very much. As I mentioned, this choke point is the world's most vital choke point in terms of energy, both for oil, but also for the LNG, liquefied natural gas. About 18 million barrels per day oil flowing from this choke point, and it's about 1/3 of the international oil trade. Mainly coming here to Asia, to Japan, Korea, China, India, and especially from key producers in Middle East such as Saudi Arabia, Emirates, and Kuwait. Also LNG, which is a major fuel source for this part of the world, it's a very important choke point. 1/3 of the international LNG trade is coming from this choke point, and coming Japan, South Korea, and others. So we are monitoring the situation very closely. IEA was founded as the energy security organization. It is our core mission. And we are looking at the situation in case of an emergency, which is not the case now. But in case of an emergency, we are ready to act. What we are going to do will range from providing immediate policy advice to governments concerned to, if needed, making use of the stocks that the International Energy Agency countries have under the ground. So, but we are not yet there, but we are following very closely. This is a major concern for the International Energy Agency and major concern for the global energy markets.
Thank you, Dr. Birol. Are there any more questions? If there are no questions, then because we are actually behind schedule, so we would like to move on to the very final part of the event, which is the photo session. So Minister Dr. Fatih Birol and Mr. Potier, would you please advance to the center of the stage for the photos? Okay? So thank you so much. So we would like to conclude this launch event, but they will have the detailed Q&A, question and answer session by the experts. So if those are press people who is interested in the following the question and answer sessions, please stay in this room. And the ministers and Dr. Birol and Mr. Potier will have to leave this room. So thank you very much for your cooperation.